Happy Friday, friends. Welcome into GoJo and Golic. I'm Claudia Bellafato here at the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a packed show for you. JJ goes to Hollywood. The Lakers get their man hired, JJ Redick, as head coach. On the call, Sean McDonough helps us preview Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. And the real McCoy, former NFL defensive lineman Gerald McCoy, joins the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and as you heard, Claudia Bellafato holding it down in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We do have a great show for everybody. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday on the DraftKings network. Plenty of that to get into. But, Dad, it is time to start where Claudia finished there. JJ Redick, after all the wailing and gnashing of teeth, we waited around for it. We had JJ on this show, what feels like months ago now, and was really just a couple of weeks ago, to talk about his future. He was mum then, and now we get the report from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski that he is in fact going to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers after the Danny Hurley flirtation and everything in between, after he helped call the NBA Finals. So, Dad, now that we're ultimately here, do you feel any differently about the hire than you did during the process?
No, I don't. I had thought the only difference I feel is from reports, we thought JJ was the guy, right? And then all of a sudden it was Danny Hurley. You know, that's they're pursuing and going to make this monster offer, of which they didn't. So there's part of me that still wants to know the underlying story of that.
Sure.
Right? Because obviously they didn't want Danny Hurley that bad, or they would have, as we say, not let him left the building and money whipped him a little bit more than that. So that didn't happen. Was it more on Dan Hurley's side? Was it more on the Lakers side? There's still a part of that question I'd like answers to. I don't know if we'll ever get. Maybe someday we will.
It sounds like we need one more pod from JJ Redick, because we assume he's getting ready to leave behind the old man in the 3 Empire, mind the game that he did with LeBron James, which we could certainly get to the impact of that in all of this. But between that and between the very thinly veiled shot at Shams that we got on this show he said he would revisit after the finals, I think it would be only right if the Lakers allowed JJ to do one more podcast before he took over his official duties. Because now, I mean, he's in the thick of it. We've got the NBA draft coming up pretty soon. Free agency getting going. LeBron James still has big decisions to make. So he's hitting the ground running in the middle of the highway right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of diving in that's going on right now, no doubt about it. So, and we know why the Lakers hired him. It's a talk about, his ability to work with the younger players. His basketball IQ that we talk about all the time, but we still don't know, right? We still have no idea what he's going to do. So from my eyes, it all looks great on what he may do. We all think he's a heck of a guy, got the basketball IQ. We'll see how in a changing NBA, that's one thing we've talked about over the last few weeks, of not just building that superstar team, of developing your younger players. That's the thought process with him. That was the thought process we talked about with Dan Hurley. To me, one of the most important things is just like the NFL, when you hire a first-time head coach, especially, and I'm going on the NFL, if the first-time head coach is an offensive guy, who do you hire as your coaches? Who do you bring in? That, to me, is going to be key. It would seem you would want to bring in an assistant who has had some big-time coaching experience, right? Just for the everyday type of thing that I don't care how much you've played basketball or seen basketball, when all of a sudden you're sitting in the big chair, things start coming at you that you've never had before, it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm sure he's called people, that have coached him, and maybe and I think a lot of people are hoping and talking about him bringing in a veteran coach or coaches on his staff to kind of help guide him along.
So I saw yesterday a group of ESPN insiders, Bobby Marks, Ramona Shelburne, and a few others, Kevin Pelton, went through and actually threw out some names that they thought would be interesting for this. I want to read you some potential assistant coach names for JJ Redick and see what you think of these. They brought up Stan Van Gundy, who had been broadcasting in the interim here. Monty Williams, potentially coming off of his firing from the Detroit Pistons. former pros, Jared Dudley and Rajon Rondo, and then Kevin Ollie. We talked about one UConn head coach during this process. There's another there. Do any of those names really pop to you in terms of someone who could be that voice or help for JJ in the early going?
What pops to me is, does he have a relationship with them? Who's coached him?
Stan Van Gundy was his first coach in Orlando.
So what's that relationship? What's the relationship with all the other guys you manage? They're all good names and basketball people, but again, it's about relationships. Just like JJ Redick's head coaching job. I heard Brian Windhorst talking about this, and I agree. We talk about the power of NBA players and the relationship. Coaches always want to have that relationship with the best player on the team. In some sports, it's more important than others. In basketball, it may be the key thing. And I think I agree with what Windy said. He said it doesn't matter how great a coach you are. If you aren't on the same same wavelength as your star player, it ain't going to work. And obviously, these two doing a pod together, he comes in the door with the respect of LeBron James, doing a podcast with him. Now, again, JJ's never coached, but still, he's on the positive side with LeBron. So that's a start in the right direction. So to me, it's not so much about the names that you mentioned. It's about what relationship does JJ have with these guys.
Well, and all of them have some sort of tie. Like Monty Williams worked in the 76ers the year that JJ Redick was an assistant with them. Rajon Rondo, to the point about getting in touch with Anthony Davis. And again, the main assistant for this, Stan Van Gundy, to me, is the name that pops. A guy that was with JJ very early in his basketball lifetime, the things they went through with that team, and his voice in general. He is a respected voice. I think they are like-minded individuals that they could lean on as he goes through some of these things for the first time. But as you fill out the whole bench, Rajon Rondo is a fascinating piece to me. Mentioned he was teammates for a while with Anthony Davis in New Orleans, and you've heard LeBron James talk about, and a lot of these guys, the respect they have for the basketball IQ of a player like Rondo, who probably went a bit underappreciated during his time. I think that mix that could be really interesting of more recent former players, kind of like JJ Redick, along with some steady veteran names. I saw Scott Brooks was another veteran head coaching name that people brought up as potentially that. And so I think a couple of those names, Dad, combined overall with JJ Redick, and we've talked ad nauseum about some of the things that would lend him well to coaching, some of the challenges that he would face. It is just interesting overall to stop and consider that on the same day we're talking about the Boston Celtics hanging banner number 18, the championship parade in that city, that we're talking about the Lakers not only moving on to another head coach, not only having big decisions to make with the roster, but the fact that now they're going off the beaten path to hire a new head coach in someone who certainly was a player. We've seen guys make the jump right from playing to that, but from playing here now to the media, very Steve Kerr-esque for the Lakers franchise that's got all this history that maybe never thought they'd have to be the ones thinking forward like this.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It is definitely forward thinking. It is thinking beyond the LeBron James years as well. And how he goes about his business. These players don't know, right? So that's a whole nother getting used to thing of how he goes about his business. And it's going to be about the rotation and certainly about the roster. And then you throw in the whole Bronny James situation, know, as well. What's going to happen with that? And then if they do bring in Bronny, how is he going to be used? Because they're not talking about, you talk to Rich Paul, his agent, not a two-way contract. We're not into that. I mean, it's a whole nother layer that a first-time head coach is going to have to deal with, right? And, oh, by the way, it's the best player and the guy you have a pretty good relationship's kid. So, I mean, not only is it a different situation, it's a situation nobody has ever had to deal with before.
Yeah, no, Claudia, this is pretty unprecedented, some of the plates that we're talking about JJ Redick going to have to spin for his first ever NBA head coaching job.
And you guys were talking about the relationship that he obviously has with LeBron James, having the podcast with him. So my question is, we've been talking about expectations and ceiling a lot when it comes to players or coaches. What are the expectations for JJ Redick? We've seen this rotation of coaches with the Lakers and LeBron James specifically. So what are the expectations to where you say, okay, JJ Redick can stay for another year, or is he just going to get shipped off like every other coach?
So first off, from the odd side, Claudia, maybe you can help me with this. JJ Redick gets hired, and I believe I saw that the odds for them to win the conference title and the NBA title actually got better. Listen, I like JJ a lot. I think he does a great job, but he's a first-time head coach. How does it work in the gambling world that when a first-time coach goes to a team that, let's be honest, is a play-in team, and all of a sudden their odds are better to win the conference and the NBA title.
It better, but we're talking it's still 14-1, right? 1,400. It's plus 3,000 to win it all. And I think it's just because it goes from not knowing who the head coach is to knowing who it is, knowing LeBron James has a connection with him. You know, there's been so much hype around JJ Redick and how he knows this game to a T. So I think it was more just the books protecting themselves to some degree, but they're not going to cut the odds all the way because that's going to affect the rest of the market. So to answer your question, yes, they did drop down a bit. I think it was 16-1 down to 14-1 for the West, but nothing drastic here, GoJo.
No, I would agree. They're still, and I think in terms of setting the expectations, they're a long way from being a team where we can expect. Remember, them making it to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago was a bit of a surprise for a lot of us, the way that roster was able to come together after the trade deadline. And even looking at it now that we've had a year to bake with that crew that they basically all brought back this last season, given the state of the rest of the Western Conference, Dad, if they were to make the postseason outside of the play-in tournament, that would feel like a monumental accomplishment. And quite honestly, JJ Redick is not going to be the most important factor when it comes to that. No. That's going to be with the picks that they now have the ability to move to try and bring over another marquee player. Are you able to do that? Who is that player? That, to me, going to have a far bigger effect. How much more can you stock the cupboard for JJ Redick going into the season? Going to determine a lot more of whether they're a play-in team or a playoff team.
I mean, can you put them ahead of any of the teams that were ahead of them? They were the first team out, right? The 6 that were guaranteed a slot: Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota, Clippers, Mavericks, Suns.
I mean, the Suns are the one I could flirt with just because, to me, I don't have a lot of faith in them going forward.
I would agree with that.
Injury's been a huge part of their story. You hardly ever had their big three on the court altogether.
But then right behind them is the Pelicans, who have been playing some ball, right? There's Sacramento, and then Golden State, who we think, that trio may be breaking up there. But as we talked about, because LeBron's on the team, you have to talk about your chances for a championship, because that's all you deal with when he's on the team. But we also have to remember JJ was brought in for after LeBron as well, right?
In theory, like, we can say that, but at the same time, to Claudia's point, since Phil Jackson, it's been 3 and out for every single head coach. And so it's one of those things when people show you who they are, believe them. Until further notice, that's who the Lakers are. Like, that's what they have created as their reality in Los Angeles. And so they're going to have to show me that they're actually going to give a coach the runway to develop a roster beyond LeBron James and beyond the star that the Lakers are rightly catering to. Like, I don't think the Lakers are wrong for how they're handling the end of LeBron James' career. We have seen this is what this franchise does. You go back most recently to Kobe. Think about the years after Kobe finally retired, where the Lakers were out of the playoffs altogether because they had mortgaged their future to reward a player that was one of the most important in their franchise's history. And I'm sure Lakers fans, Kobe stands, none of them would have any regrets about that. But that's how they do business, and it seems like they're setting up to do business like that again. If LeBron opts out of that player option, signs another 3-year deal, where on the back end we know, hey, just him being there is not going to be the thing alone that gets you to a championship anymore. And we don't know if AD's ever going to be the guy that takes up that mantle in that same way we thought he would.
And I guess there's already been a difference in the way the Lakers are looking at it because, again, with the Hurley thing and where that went, they offered him a 6-year deal. Yeah. It's a 4-year deal. We don't know the money. It was 6 for $70 for Hurley. This is 4 years. We don't know the money. I'm sure it's nice money, but I know it's not going to be Danny Hurley average per year money, I don't believe. But it is 4 years. So they have cut it down a couple of years. So to your point, I'm with you as far as how long of a look you get.
And that's risk management, right? Yeah. We talk about that all the time. The guaranteed deals in the NBA aren't guaranteed because the CBA says they need to be.
Right.
Just like in the NFL, it's not a CBA issue. That is risk management. They guarantee the contracts in the NBA because it is a lot harder to get catastrophically injured in this league than it is in something like the NFL. It's the same thing. Risk management with a guy in JJ Redick who you believe has the bone. It's like it's like looking at a puppy, right? Big paws. You think he's going to grow in and be a big old doggy. But at the same time, you don't know that. So you got to protect yourself. You got to put a few puppy pads down on the house and try and help him through those early growing pains here. And with JJ Redick, they believe that, yes, the aptitude is there, the work ethic and the understanding of the modern game. We talked with him a lot before the finals about Joe Mazzulla and this Boston Celtics team, about the things he's learned talking to coaches like Joe Mazzulla leading up to these games, the analytics and the way that he digests modern basketball. He's going to walk in with a lot of that ammunition and backdrop to him, and then it's just, can you give him enough structure around there to let him go cook?
He's going to walk in with a lot of information and knowledge, but no practical application, and that's what he's going to have to go through, and that's why, again, I really look to him. We've just talked about earlier, bringing it full circle. What's the staff that he brings in? I think that is so important. I think it's more underrated or not talked about enough, maybe by the casual fan, maybe by the basketball people, I'm sure it is, of the importance of the assistant coaches. We always talk about the coordinators in the NFL, the next guys that are going to get jobs. The importance of the assistants in basketball, of what side, offense, defense, the players that they're working with in specialty situations. So I think that is just so huge for him.
I think it's going to be really interesting, too. Like we talked about mourning the potential loss of the Old Man and the Three podcast here. A lot of the guys on this Lakers team I've seen have been on JJ's podcast or have talked to him before. But there's a difference of that and now this guy being the guy dictating the orders to you everywhere. And I understand it's not a dictatorship more often than not in the professional sports ranks. But just this idea of what we said, like coming in now, like, yeah, we know LeBron James rocks with JJ Redick. We have no idea what Anthony Davis thinks about this. No, we have no idea how quick the rest of the team is going to be able to get on board just because LeBron said so, or what this transition is going to look like day to day. It's not unprecedented in this league, but I do think it is very interesting. So that part of it from a human standpoint, super interesting to me.
So we have, do you think we can get one more podcast? I think timing is bad on that. You're 6 days to the drafts. 9 days to, deciding if they're, picking up their options or not. He may have a little too much work to do to fit in one more pod.
I hope he gets one in
I
there.
would like that too.
I do think it's funny that we have seen, and everyone made the obvious joke. Like, shout out to everyone in sports media for meeting the moment here and making the joke about how the podcaster to coach head pipeline is now fully operational here. As if the rest of us would want to do that. Like, let me make this very clear right now. Unless Jimmy Sexton's willing to represent me tomorrow and some team wants to hire me with the full anticipation of firing me at cost in about a year in and maybe less, I have no interest in that kind of work. This job is so much easier than what they have to do there. And I'm amazed that many of y'all would even jokingly sign up for this on the off chance someone took you seriously at this point. That's a dangerous game. You don't want these problems. We get to sit in a chair and be wrong. They got to go out there and actually try and coach this thing. No chance.
See, I wouldn't mind it now that you guys are, I told the story many times. I turned down starting a coaching career in the NFL. When I retired, the late great Bud Carson was my D coordinator in Philly. He ended up with the Rams. I was in Miami. And afterward, when I retired, he called me and he said, hey, I think you could be a really good coach. You want to start out as an assistant D-line coach on my staff on the defensive side? And you guys, obviously, this is 94. Sydney was on the way. You and Jake were both young at that point. And, I thought about it for a little bit, but then I always remembered, I got there, they were already there. I left, they were still there, and I got young kids. I said, I didn't want to go down that road. But now you've seen some coaches, guys who have played, get into it later when their kids are already older. You look at it, we see JJ Redick. You look at a guy like Dan Orlovsky, gets talked about each year for possibly coaching. And I think he would like to coach. But you know him better than I know him. He's got the young kids as well, all playing sports. I don't think he wants to mess with that. So I didn't want to at that point. I didn't want to go down in that lifestyle at that point. But
you're saying now.
Now, sure. I mean, once you guys are all doing your own thing, someone wants to bring me on, let's talk.
So, like, what kind of position are we talking? Do you want to be a full-blown defensive line coach? Do you want to be an analyst like in college football where you just get to watch tape and you don't have to do any of the on-field stuff?
Oh, no, I want to do on-field stuff. I definitely want to be on field.
All right, well, we need to figure out what kind of role you want.
Head coach.
All right. Oh. If anyone is looking for my father to be that, I'd assume football. That'd probably be the place you want to go.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know. I don't know if you'd be entertaining this.
What do you want me to head coach?
I don't know. Maybe you wanted to go do some wrestling.
Some wrestling.
Some wrestling.
Okay. No. Football. And no, it would not be. No one's hiring me as a head coach. It would be a position on, I'm sure, D-line, which it would. I would, if I had to do it, Claudia, I'd like to be on the field doing it.
But GoJo, you know what's going to happen then? You're going to have to deal with the whole world realizing, again, for those who don't know, the whole situation with your father and what people call him. Because that happens on live TV. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that's what happens. Some locker room can deal with the whole Zaddy phenomenon there. Then it would be off my plate. Then I wouldn't have the day-by-day comparison of the head of hair next to me and the abomination of a picture of the face swap we did the other day.
All I know is if I start coaching you, I'm not talking to the media anymore.
There we go. He's done. Get the cameras out of his face and get them into Marlon Humphrey's face. He'll talk to us next here on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Ravens corner Marlon Humphrey did not stay quiet. He actually did the opposite on his podcast. The Punchline this week, calling out his former teammate, Patrick Queen, who signed with the rival Steelers this offseason. Humphrey tried to send the message and did it pretty clearly that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Here's what he had to say.
I'm not hating on Pittsburgh, I'm not hating on PQ, but I've been at the Ravens for a while. I've seen this same story go down with a lot of guys. It's the best place on earth, this new place I'm at. Oh my gosh, dude, it's not like the Ravens. Reality sets in eventually. Okay? I hope it's great over there. But sometimes, I'm just saying, I've seen that once or twice. I don't know anybody that's went to Pittsburgh from the Ravens, so I can't say that it's going to be like that there. But I have seen this story.
He's not saying, he's just saying in a few different voices. So then Queen had a very simple response. He posted a video of him watering his very green lawn while enjoying a beverage, which is awesome. And this leads me to thinking, are there any intriguing player signings this offseason to where a player went to a rival team? And also, I just need to hear what you have to think about this clip.
First and foremost, let me just say I was the worst at answering somebody and ours was mostly talk on field, right? We didn't have social media, any of this when I was playing. I would actually ask my brother Greg for some lines that I could use on the field.
As a trash talker.
As a trash talker.
No, you were pretty bad at that.
I was horrible. Mine was usually 2 words, F you. That was pretty much it.
And unfortunately, you passed that trait down to us because I was never good at it, and I was always so jealous of people that were.
Never. And my brother Greg could do it in the real world, not on the football field so much. So I would always ask him, give me a line or two to try, because I was actually I was too busy trying to get oxygen in my lungs after a play.
Yeah.
That's why most trash talk happens the further away you get from the football than linemen for the most part. This, I mean, what a great response! Just a great response. But it was a fun one by Marlon Humphrey and what he did. I always love the no disrespect to, but, which then you immediately go and say something. But I thought that whole exchange was pretty cool. Right? It wasn't mean. Marlon Humphrey wasn't mean or throwing unbelievable darts. And Patrick Queen's response was actually really pretty cool. So that being said, I don't know if you have something to say about that. I know to me, it's not even close as far as the guy who went to a rival who I'm looking at.
Yeah, we can get to that. I do think this is interesting just with this particular player and this particular move. What's going to happen with Patrick Queen? Patrick Queen, I believe, in terms of free agency dollars, is like one of the highest paid free agents that's ever come to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tends to be a franchise that homegrowns and rewards their own.
Yep.
And looking at that, so much of Patrick Queen's production jump came when Roquan Smith got over to the Baltimore Ravens.
Right.
Like, you look at Roquan Smith is able to do so many things that I think it allowed Patrick Queen next to him to do the things he did best, specifically going towards the quarterback and harassing them up the middle from some places that people wouldn't expect. So I'm fascinated to see how that works in general, but also, like, as many players as we've had do this within the division. Like, you've got him, you've got Geno Stone that went from the Ravens to the Cincinnati Bengals. Mm-hmm. There's a lot. And in the AFC North, where I get it's 2024 and we don't often associate this interdivisional hate the way we used to, but the AFC North seems like that one place where it still kind of pops off like this because the teams are all really good, too.
And I think a lot of it was Baltimore and Pittsburgh that had, especially when Ray Lewis was around, the rivalry, the hitting rivalry, something that has really kind of been missing in the NFL, kind of that real kind of hatred on the field where you're just trying to just drive somebody into the ground. But for players now, it's a little different where you can there are players back in the day would never think about going to a rival team, wouldn't even cross their mind. Now, the money wasn't then what it is now. And that would certainly, because everybody has a price. But Patrick Queen, you do go from having, not having to go against Lamar Jackson to now not only go against him once, but twice a year, along with Derrick Henry as well. So you got a couple of interesting games.
I was just saying, that's not just like when we do the quarterback versus quarterback thing where they don't actually play against each other. You're the one now.
Yes,
you've seen them in practice, and you've had Lamar with the whatever color. I don't know if it's a red jersey in the camp that they use in Baltimore or if they work off their colors, but you haven't been able to touch him.
Nope.
Now you get a chance to try and touch the merchandise.
Yep.
And try is the operative word because many try and many fail there. And I get being excited. Listen, the Steelers are a quality organization, just the way the Baltimore Ravens are a quality organization. I'm not worried about how he's treated on the day-to-day. Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, two of the best coaches and longest standing in the NFL. But it is in the NFL, and for non-quarterbacks, I think everyone's pretty acutely aware, and Dad, you can speak to this. Even as a defensive player, you're aware of what's going on the other side of the ball under center. Yeah. And on one side, you've got a guy with 2 MVPs who's now won playoff games for you. And on the other side, you're trying to reclaim Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Like, one of those is considerably more unstable than the other. And so you've accepted the money in exchange for a lot of uncertainty at the most important spot that dictates your team's future.
It's going to be tough to him to get paid there because Roquan made $20 million a year. You know, he got that big bag from Baltimore. So this is kind of the business side of how it works. And looking at players, again, a lot of players moved in the offseason, but players that went to rivals. Patrick Queen, obviously Baltimore to Pittsburgh. You mentioned Geno Stone, Baltimore to Cincinnati. Jonathan Owens went from Green Bay to Chicago, the safety.
Simone Biles' husband.
And Simone Biles' husband, exactly. Running back Aaron Jones went from Green Bay to Minnesota. Safety Jordan Poyer went from Buffalo to Miami, but and
then immediately said Josh Allen is the best, like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, right into his face.
As Tua is trying to negotiate a deal in Miami, which seems to be kind of not getting where it needs to be right now. But to me, easily the number one is Saquon Barkley going from the Giants to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Again, it's not. This isn't a it's direct effect twice a year, obviously, for the division, and what Saquon can bring. The talk about Jalen Hurts, and then they sign the wide receivers back, and now you get this running back, and the O-line, while they don't get Jason Kelce back because he retired, still one of the better O-lines. Just as much as I'm looking to what Derrick Henry brings to that rushing attack in Baltimore, which is already a great rushing attack, but what he adds, what Saquon adds, not only running the ball, but catching the ball out of the backfield for this offense on its third offense coordinator in 3 years.
I was going to ask, which of those backs do you think has the bigger effect this season?
Oh, I think Saquon does.
Really?
Because Baltimore already had the top rushing attack. Now, this can be a little different where you may not look to handing it off to the running back on 3rd and 3, but when you have Derrick Henry, you can, if he's out on the field, that he's the obviously a threat to get the ball. But they were already an excellent rushing team. I think he can add another dimension to that. But to me, it's Saquon because of his versatility. That's where we are in the NFL now. It's rare to have just that running back anymore. You got to be, way back in the day, Marshall Faulk, and even before that, guys that were catching the ball out of the backfield. Now it's Christian McCaffrey, right? But it's Saquon Barkley as well when he's healthy, running the ball, catching it out of the backfield. So to me, I think he can have more effect on this offense.
Saquon Barkley, in terms of receptions, last year 41 in a season where he missed a couple games due to injury, playing 16 in 2022, 57 receptions there. So certainly capable in that area. It's just really hard for me to go away from Derrick Henry and what he's displayed in terms of his physical ability, but also largely his durability in his career. At points where he's had more touches than most running backs get in entire careers, he's still managed to, because of, I think, his size, have that. And now he's going to a place that's actually going to take work off his plate. It's not like Tennessee at the end where he was the only guy and everybody knew it. Last year, we got a little bit of a view of that with Tyjae Spears, but now him, Keaton Mitchell, and the rest of this backfield, along with Lamar Jackson, and I think the better coordinator of the two. Like, you look at Kellen Moore trying to come in here now in Philadelphia, you said 3rd and 3 years, versus Todd Monken, who's in his second season in Baltimore and now has a new toy to play with. I'm really excited to see what the Ravens do.
By the way, you just want to have a little bit of fun today. If you have a couple of minutes just for yourself and you want to do something, it's always fun to watch great players play against the best players in the NFL and what they can do in that stiff arm of Derrick Henry. Go look at Derrick Henry's high school film.
Yeah,
the 4-year starter.
Scary boy.
Just how much bigger he was than those guys in high school, what he did to them, it was absurd. Absolutely absurd.
I can't imagine how many times Derrick Henry as a kid got asked to produce his birth certificate at Pop Warner games or even high school games. Because you're right. I got to cover the Heisman Trophy for ESPN Radio the year he was there, and walking in to do that interview after and staring eye to eye with a running back was not a situation I had prepared for in my lifetime. So a bunch of big beefy boys making their way to new homes this season in the NFL.
We're back here on GoJo and Golic, and I don't know about where you live, but I can promise you the heat wave has hit here in Boston, and because it is a summer Friday, we're going to start a new edition of something fun called a summer cooler. You know, you reach one in, grab a cold one on a Friday, of course, after work. That's what we're going to do right here, talk about some of the cool stories around the sports world, and we start in Major League Baseball. Last night, MLB paid tribute to the Negro Leagues and Willie Mays, the legendary Hall of Famer who died on Tuesday, by staging a special regular season game between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Francisco Giants. The game was played at Rickwood Field, located in Birmingham, Alabama, home to the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. And I think this is a great first edition story to start off with, GoJo.
Yeah, it was a moment that we talked about a lot in the lead up, certainly took on, I think, a different light in the passing of Willie Mays here in this week, and how important he was to baseball overall. Certainly having the Giants in here, the team that he starred for so long, Dad, made this an even more poignant moment. But in the midst of all this, there was a baseball game. There was all the fanfare surrounding that. Major League Baseball recently making the decision to merge the Negro League stats with Major League Baseball to acknowledge this incredible league full of athletes. There was one of the realest moments I've ever seen on television last night, and I want to play some of it for you here. Reggie Jackson was on the set with all of these guys, Alex Rodriguez, Big Papi, a whole group of great players who all were paying tribute to Reggie Jackson and the role that he played, and other players like him in allowing the opportunities for players of color in the future.
This is great. You know, when you always talk about some players saying, hey, I'm just, you know, off the backs of the generation before me, and understanding that this was a great moment for younger players to see how this all started and where some of these great players came from and what they went through to get where they are, to help the players get where they are.
Yeah,
today.
Reggie Jackson didn't throw any polish on this for anybody, did not try and soften the blow. When Alex Rodriguez asked, Reggie Jackson played 114 games for the Birmingham A's in the minor leagues before eventually getting called up. And so it just started with Alex Rodriguez asking him what it felt like and what it meant to be back here in Birmingham. And this is what he had to say.
Coming back here is not easy. The racism that I played here, when I played here, the difficulty of going through different places where we traveled. Fortunately, I had a manager and I had players on the team that helped me get through it. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody. People said to me today, I spoke, and they said, you think you're a better person? You think you won when you played here in Concord? I said, you know, I would never want to do it again. I walked into restaurants and they would point at me and said, can't eat here. I would go to a hotel and they say, then can't stay here. We went to Charlie Finley's country club for a welcome home dinner and they pointed me out with the N-word. He can't come in here. Finley marched the whole team out. Finally, they let me in there. He said, we're going to go to the diner and eat hamburgers. We'll go where we're wanted. Fortunately, I had a manager, Johnny McNamara, that if I couldn't eat in the place, nobody would eat. We'd get food to travel. If I couldn't stay in a hotel, they'd drive to the next hotel and find a place where I could stay. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. At the same time, had it not been for my white friends, had it not been for a white manager, and Rudy, Fingers, and Duncan, and Lee Myers, I would have never made it. I was too physically violent. I was ready to physically fight I'd have got killed here because I'd have beat someone's ass, and you'd have saw me in an oak tree somewhere.
Wow.
Like start to finish, painting that picture, because I feel like so much in this day and age, people try and gloss over this stuff. I mean, there's places that don't even want to teach this part of U.S. history in history books anymore. And Reggie Jackson made it very clear, no, this wasn't some romantic BS. This was hell for me. And I spent every day with my fist balled trying not to fight these people that pointed out their hate to me during this time period. And so for anyone, and thankfully we didn't see much pushback, especially when the Negro League stats stats were integrated into Major League Baseball, because people understood that was the kind of force that was keeping these great players out of Major League Baseball and forced them into their own league because of that level of hatred.
Through no fault of their own. They had to play their own league, so I'm glad their stats got recognized. But you're right. It is as we get to younger and younger people looking back on the game, you just kind of say, oh, yeah, we went through that era. But, man, I mean, obviously we could never even imagine something like that. And there are many people, whether they're white, African-American or not, couldn't imagine that, right? That didn't go through that of what he went through. But talking about the support, that's the beauty of a team. And in this case, boy, did you need your team. Forgetting sport. This wasn't even sports. This was just about, the idiocy of racism then and those, white people helping, the African Americans, in this case, baseball players, and showing the support of saying, all right, if you're not letting them in here, none of us are staying here. We're all going. We're a team here. We're staying together. So that stuff was great to hear, but you can't even fathom what he went through. And then to hear his truths of, I'd be dead because I would be wanting to kick someone's ass, or would so badly that it would end poorly for me. I mean, just you're right. I mean, it does take away the romance of, wow, we got through that era. We pushed through that, and look at it all now. Well, man, you know what? It certainly wasn't a clean thing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we haven't pushed through anything. It's still plenty bad.
I guess. But like it was there.
Yeah, but and I guess that's the thing is, like, you and I both had teammates that experienced racism, both saw it, both heard stories about it from the guys that were in locker room with were in locker rooms with us. But in most cases, there's still, we understand, a different extreme that came during the era Reggie Jackson lived through there. So I just appreciate his testimony there on such a public platform.
Incredible.
It's worth the full 3 minute plus of that clip is absolutely worth your time and worth checking out here. Claudia, why don't we get to a little U.S. Olympic swimming here on the back end of this segment, since I know Dad's been chomping at the bit here.
Yeah, sticking with this theme of being cool, there's nobody or nothing cooler than Katie Ledecky and what she is able to do in the water with the 1,500-meter freestyle. We have some tape, I think. Hopefully we have some tape to show of her dominating at the U.S. Olympic swim trials. She placed first, right? So, I mean, the race 20 seconds faster than the next closest swimmer. But the craziest thing is the other 18 faster times, this was the 19th fastest ever, the 18 other faster times all owned by Katie Ledecky as well. And we're going to show you tape now. If you're not watching DraftKings Network or on YouTube, she just makes it. It looks like she's playing or swimming in a different pool than everybody else. She's insane, Senior.
It's stunning how great of a swimmer she is at that distance. And by the way, the 1,500 was only put in the Olympics in this last Olympics in 21 in Tokyo. And she won it easily. But she dominated the 800. She got into the scene in 2012. She was 15. Her first national senior meet was the Olympic trials in 2012. And she made the Olympics and then won. As a 15-year-old, won the 800. She has been dominant in that. She has 7 golds in Olympics right now, 21 world championship golds, most for any female swimmer. In 2012, she won that gold in the 800. In 2016, she won the 200, the 400, and the 800. And then in 21, she won the 800 and the 1,500. And the 1,500 is now an event going forward, so she'll continue to dominate that. Absolutely incredible what she does.
And, like, obviously, Michael Phelps is the consensus answer on the men's side. Is she the best women's swimmer in U.S. history?
Yes, I believe she is. Yes. And what she has accomplished and her dominance, again, in the 1,500, but the 800 and the 400, her dominance. And then she's come into the 200 and done pretty well there as well. So her dominance, the most amazing thing is she finishes at 1,500. And then if they win her, the winners go and get interviewed. And she went over to Melissa Stark. It's like she wasn't even breathing hard.
Yeah, she had plenty of time as a 20-second gap between her and second place was going on in that pool. The 1,500, by the way, is an event so bad that most other swimmers look at it as punishment. I think Sydney, my sister, when she got asked to swim it, purposely threw it so they'd never ask her to swim it again. And Katie Ledecky has decided to make that her personality.
What you're doing to prepare for distance swimming, the alone time, and it's a team event. You have a team, but you're alone in that pool, staring at the black line at the bottom of the pool forever.
No questions about Katie Ledecky, but coming up next, I have a big question coming off what we saw last night at the Olympic swimming trials in Indianapolis. Next on GoJo and Golic. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Claudia Bellafato. Got a good hour for you coming up. Gerald McCoy, former NFL defensive tackle, who you've seen over on the NFL Network as a broadcaster, going to join us and chop it up a little bit. And Sean McDonough, one of our old colleagues over at ESPN, who's on the call for the Stanley Cup Final as Game 6 shifts back to Edmonton. Going to check in with them ahead of that coming up. But I had a question. We were talking about Katie Ledecky in the last segment. As you put it, the greatest female swimmer in the history of U.S. swimming, and on her way to even more great Olympic fare. But it's been awesome watching a lot of different stories in the trials over the last few days. And one of them was Lily King, who's a two-time gold medalist in the Olympics already and had a first yesterday in U.S. swimming history. She had already qualified for her third Olympic Games in the 100-meter breaststroke, but became the first American swimmer to qualify in both the 100-meter and 200-meter breaststroke, 3 Olympics in a row.
Nice. I like when you have the swimming knowledge.
Yeah, had it dialed in there,
All
man.
right,
Okay. And it was a great moment, and I was excited for her because, again, we've got plenty of background in swimming through Sydney, and it's a sport that I've always appreciated.
And this was following the 200 breast final, which you play second, but still 1 and 2 make the Olympic team, so she made the Olympics in that as well.
So narrowly made the time, goes through this big moment here, and then leaves the pool and then is immediately coming off the deck. One of her teammates tells her, hey, take off your cap and let your hair down. She's a little bit confused, and all of a sudden her boyfriend, James Wells, is standing there on the other side, and love a big, burly, bearded king, which he looks like, and he proposes to her at this spot here. She says yes. There's a big happy moment. I think I saw her on one of the morning talk shows here today. And you see and hear it right here. Dad, I'm just wondering where we're at. And Claudia, being the only woman on this show, I'm curious from the other side of this, because Dad's been on the proposing side of this.
Horrible job.
I have not done all of that. Yeah, you did a terrible job with proposing.
Really? Oh, I have to hear that. I have to hear it.
And I want to say it right now. I am happy for them because she seems happy. They seem happy. It was a great moment there. Timing was a little interesting to me. I'm not a huge fan of public proposals, and especially in this moment, right after this big personal career moment for her, to have this on top of it, it just seemed like a bit much for my sensibilities. Again, I don't want to come down on the kids too hard because they're in love, they're making it work, it's great, and if it works for them, it works for me. I'm just saying public proposals still feel like an incredibly controversial area.
Yeah, it was one of those where I almost wish she didn't know he was going to be down there if he just walked around something and immediately hit a knee. That's the, oh my God, surprise. But he was standing there saying all these things to her, including, I moved across country, quit my job for you and moved across country and didn't mind doing that. I'm like, dude, I don't know if this is the time you need to tell us what you did, okay?
Yeah.
And so he was talking. We all knew what was happening, even her. That's why.
And there's a camera right there next to them. So her antenna's got to be up.
And even Dan Hicks, who's the play-by-play goes, he's going to pop the question to her. Like, yep, we know that one. Because
let it breathe, Dan.
I mean,
let it breathe.
I'd have been much happier. Again, who gives a damn what I think? But if you come out and what's he doing here? And boom, he's on his knee. Well, I guess, Claudia, we should ask you. You're the one that would be receiving the ring in this.
Yeah, well, how would you feel about this?
I would hate it. I really would. And she might love it. Like maybe they've talked about before, and she said, hey, if I go do this incredible thing in the sport that I'm so good at, and you like, this is my dream. Me personally, no, I do not want anybody around me, because I also don't want anyone to hear it. That's like a private conversation. And this man just broadcasted it to the world. So it's a no for me, dog, but good for him. Good. I'm happy for them. I would have hated it. But Senior, you said yours is horrible, so I need to hear this now.
It's horrible.
Ow.
It was, I flew to Chicago to see Chris. She lived in Chicago. And I flew to see her, and I was going to propose to her. And we went to a concert. We went to a Jack Wagner concert What we didn't really go for the Jack Wagner part of it. Opening for them was the Michael Stanley band, who Michael Stanley passed away a bit ago. Knew him very well. He's from Cleveland, big-time Cleveland musician, so grew up listening to his music. So we were really going to see him open, and then we were going to leave. And I was in the car. We pulled in the car into the parking lot, and basically she knew I had the ring. I said I had the ring. I mean, it was the most unromantic thing.
What was it? Would you say? Do you want to see it?
I said, "Do you want to see that?" I think I said, "Do you want to see the ring?" You know, it was
what?
She's probably upstairs right now, just yelling at me, saying how it really went. But
we need Chris on here. Get Chris. I need to know the true story.
Claudia was horrible. Because she knew I had the ring. I'm horrible at that. She knew I had the ring. She knew I had the ring on me. She knew I was going to propose to her. So it was almost basically like, let's get this over with here in the car before we go into the concert. That was kind of how it went, which is horrible.
Let's get this over with.
I know.
Okay.
But I think that's what it seemed like.
Well, but you know what? At least you did it in a private moment as opposed to doing it inside the concert. Because, again, that was my whole, not beef with this moment, but disagreement is that was supposed to be about Lily King. Everything in that pool was supposed to be about her, and then it ends up becoming about the them moment there, where it's supposed to be her accomplishment. She's in the midst of this big thing here, and so you at least let Mom enjoy the concert here and got this out of the way beforehand, even if phrasing it like that's terrible.
Claudia, it was just horrible. I mean, listen, it worked. We've been married 37 years, and we have 3, decent kids, a couple of phenomenal grandkids, but it was awful. No planning, no nothing, awful.
I think the way you should frame it is you guys knew you were in love, you knew you were going to get married, so it was just a thing you had to do, and that's beautiful.
Telling that story better.
I can't, because your mother will come in and just refute it and say what a horrible, and I don't blame her. I'm not saying that against her. It was horrible. It was a horrible thing.
You know what I'll say? We are trashing your proposal to Mom here. Yeah. Claudia, why don't we get a little cash or trash it and save my dad from himself as we look towards Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final?
Oh, my gosh. Yes. The question. I'm going to pop the question. Do the Oilers have 2 more in them because they pushed to a Game 6? Can they push to a Game 7? They are at home, so luck is on their side. Here's what Panthers head coach Paul Maurice had to say about the pressure heading into this game.
I'm not trying to fight the word pressure. There's certainly lots of energy to be had, to be collected, and to learn how to focus that energy. And I thought we did in Game 5. I thought we got a handle on it. So we'll look forward to it. I mean, whatever your best day is that you look forward to, there's probably a whole lot of energy involved in that. And there is, for us in this line of work, this is our big time, right? This is where all of the juice is. So learning how to kind of get comfortable with it and how to focus it. A really important life skill, really in terms of the life of a team, and maybe even more than that, the life of an organization. To have people have the experience that we're getting right now is just incredible.
Juice is flowing at Edmonton. Cash it or trash it, presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned to hear everything DraftKings has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. Cashing or trashing an Edmonton win, sending this back to Florida for a Game 7. Senior, what say you?
Well, first off, it's good to see Coach teaching life lessons.
There you go.
It's all about team sports, teaching life lessons here about pressure. I've been wrong in about every cash it or trash it we've done. I want to see a Game 7, so I'm gonna do the reverse psychology since I've been wrong every time and say Pittsburgh ends it tonight. I mean, Florida ends it tonight.
Perfect. No wonder you've been wrong.
Yeah, I know. How about I'm not even getting the teams right. That Florida will end it tonight. Hoping I'll be wrong. Not that I have a dog in this fight. I just want to see a Game 7. I would love to see a Game 7. Again, we're only on the 4th team ever to go down 0-3 to bring it to 3-2, and now the Cup's in the house for the 3rd game in a row.
And for those not watching quickly, I just want to say Oilers -120 favorites at DraftKings, and Panthers you're getting even money. So GoJo, which side of this are you on?
Give me the Oilers. I'm betting vibes here. I want game 7. I want weird pressure. I want the comeback from down 0-3 to give us something to think about here, that earned pressure. Coming up next, Gerald McCoy will talk with us about the pressure facing current NFL defensive linemen from the league next. All right, excited to welcome in our next guest here, former Oklahoma Sooner, great NFL veteran defensive tackle, Gerald McCoy, kind enough to give us some time on a busy stretch coming up. You know, you got college orientation going on for the kids. You got a football camp coming up this weekend, so we appreciate your time, man. How you doing?
I'm excellent. You know, this is my second college student, actually. My first was during COVID, so that was a little different experience of dropping him off because it was like, hey, son, like waving from across the street.
Yeah.
Like, hey, son, all right, I'll see you later when I can touch you again. You know, This is like a real college experience of dropping her off, going to orientation. It was a long day. Listen, I'm glad that I went through multiple training camps because if I didn't, oh, Lord, we had to check in at 8:30. We didn't leave until 6 p.m. And it was nothing but meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. Walk, meeting. So thank you guys for giving me this break.
But it is nice that you'll be able to give your daughter a hug this time like you couldn't to your son.
Seriously, absolutely, man.
Right. So let me ask you this real quick about going to college. We had talked another time about 3 former Pittsburgh Steelers who all their kids are now committed to Notre Dame. Mike Taylor, Plaxico Burress, and Jerome Bettis, all committed to Notre Dame. Let's go back to I think it was 2006. You were the #1 ranked D tackle, I believe, in the country. You had offers everywhere. And if I remember correctly, Notre Dame was on the list. You ended up staying home and going to Oklahoma. Was there ever a thought, were you close at all to going to Notre Dame?
Notre Dame was my first college visit. And get this, it was the Bush Push game. I don't know how many people are listening that are going to remember that game, but get this. I'm from the south side of Oklahoma City, right? I had never seen nothing like that besides going down to OU. I'm in South Bend. The fans are crazy. I'm walking through the crowd. They score, my first college visit experience was it was one for the ages. It was the first time they wore the green jerseys. So they warmed up in the blue, went into the locker room, and the guys that was there said, "Hey, we got a special surprise for you." So I'm waiting, and they run out in the green jerseys, and I'm like, "Oh, what's this mean?" Because I didn't know. So they was like, "They've never worn these before. Everybody's excited." I'm like, "All right, yay!" So I'm there because the next weekend I'm going to visit USC. So I'm watching both teams very closely. But my very first college experience is the Bush game. So all that takes place. The fans rushed the field. I don't know if you guys remember. I'll rehash your memory. The fans rushed the field. And they had to clear the fans off because the game wasn't over. Notre Dame thought they had won. I'm a recruit. Anybody who's ever been recruited know you can only do so much. I rushed the field with the fans because I'm thinking, shoot, I ain't never experienced this. They like, Gerald, get back. I'm like, oh. So I run back, and USC ends up winning the game because Bush pushed Badliner into the end zone. So let me tell you how cold-blooded Pete Carroll is. I love Pete Carroll to death, and I always will. They walk up the tunnel. Anybody who's ever been there, the tunnel, you walk up in the locker rooms are like this on either side.
Yeah.
We're standing at Notre Dame's. USC is over there. Pete Carroll walks over to their locker room, taps me on the chest and says, "You see what just happened, right? I'll see you next week." And I said, "Well, Notre Dame's out." So, but I had an incredible experience at Notre Dame. So, yes, they were, they ended up being number 5 on my list. But, yes, they were my very first college visit.
Boy, that's a great story. Gerald McCoy's very first college visit, only one of the most impactful games in the 21st century of modern college football.
Just what I'm saying is incredible. I know.
Did you ever think you'd have been at the college game that ends up? I always said the butterfly effect from that game and Reggie Bush pushing there gave us the Philly tush push that we've seen now in the NFL that Jalen Hurts and these dudes have been doing. That's been the bane of existence for defensive tackles in the NFL now for the last couple of years. Go figure.
I know, it's crazy, man. I actually got a Bush push shirt back at the house. So when I seen that shirt came out, I was like, I gotta have it because this is my first college visit. So yeah.
Wow. All right. So one of your first college visits is one of the most scarring moments of my life as a young Notre Dame fan and future Notre Dame player. So we've all got that beautiful tie. Yeah. Finds here and has led us to this moment. But Gerald, I did want to talk about with you today. You wrapped up an incredible career over a decade in the NFL, playing one of the most difficult positions in football, and one that I think right now, would you characterize this as like a golden era of defensive tackle play? Because I'm looking up between the salaries that we're seeing paid out to guys this offseason, the conversation around D tackles in the NFL. Does it feel like we're going through a phase where this position is as appreciated as it's been in your lifetime?
I wouldn't say as appreciated in my lifetime. I honestly feel like my era was, because we ushered in the Saps and the Leroy Glovers and the John Randalls were few and far between. Guys that could just get to the quarterback consistently, where you're constantly looking inside at this defensive tackle and knowing they can get to the quarterback just as well as the defensive end. I feel like my era really ushered in to where that's a normal thing on every team. And I believe that our era kind of ushered in the way that a lot of these guys are playing now, which brings in the big money. And I'm excited to see it. Listen, anytime that my position or defense period can get paid and is getting talked about, I love it.
Listen, I'm with you. As a former D-Lineman, the one here next to me, my son played the O-line. He was on the wrong side of the ball. I tried to coach it out of him, but it didn't happen. You got in the league in 2010, ended 2021, long career. I always like to ask guys, because you were kind of there for like the flip in football with some of the rules that started to be enforced, how the game has changed a little bit. In your mind, what's been the biggest change in the NFL from you when you got into when you left to now?
I mean, it's not a big change, but adding the game, we never thought we'd see where they would add another game. The rule that impacted us the most was the landing on the quarterback. It was like an uproar in every locker room. Like every time we had that meeting with the NFLPA and they were introducing the new rules, what we have to do, and this is for the casual fans that don't know, before every season, we have to sit and learn all the new rules. And they bring in refs so we can ask questions. And every time it was an uproar when this rule was brought up of landing on the quarterback. It's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Football's getting soft, and it's y'all's fault. Y'all shouldn't be throwing this flag. We defensive linemen, what do y'all want us to do? Hug them and lay them on the ground? That was the thing. That was the most impactful to me when we talk about like rule changes, because I know there was a time where in 2019 I was with the Carolina Panthers and we was playing the Green Bay Packers, and I hit Aaron Rodgers. I literally rolled on the side of him and laid him sideways. But because my shoulder is larger than his body, it landed on him. And that was the video. I've been a part of a lot of like crazy things. That was the video. You remember they threw a flag and Aaron Rodgers caught it out the air? That was that flag. And Aaron Rodgers stood up and was like, hey, rules is rules, but that wasn't a foul. I'm like, I know it wasn't, but like, what is he gonna run over and tell the ref? Like that makes me think of that commercial. Have y'all seen that commercial where that kid touched the ball and then went out of bounds? And he goes, he's like, Coach, I touched it. Like nobody would ever do that in life. And it made me think, like, what is Aaron Rodgers gonna go over there and tell him, hey, ref, that wasn't a flag. Don't throw it. Pick it up. He's not gonna do that. So it's like, that's the rule that impacted us the most. Like defensive lineman, or in my time of playing, that's what I say impacted us the most.
I think that might be the rule that's been the bane of my father's existence the most, watching games with my dad now. He got 9 years in the NFL as a defensive tackle. The amount of times I can set my watch to hearing him go, well, what do you want them to do over the course of a game when that pops up? Too many times to count here.
Can I explain why that is a problem and why that sucks for us? Absolutely. There's one position in practice that can't finish. It's the defensive lineman. We can't practice finishing. O-lineman can pancake us. Nobody says a word. A linebacker can finish on a running back. Even when we go third, sometimes we go live periods in practice. Wide receivers can catch the ball and finish in the end zone. Running backs can finish in the end zone. Quarterbacks can throw. Everybody in practice can finish. We can't practice finishing. We practice on the dummy, run, reach, but we can't go hit a quarterback. We are the only group that can't practice finishing in practice. So when we get in the game, we can't practice slowing down. We don't know, like we that's how we play. So we don't know how to get in the game and tackle a certain way or roll him or whatever. It's by any means necessary. Half the time, you just try to get the ball out. But you're trying to get this guy on the ground however you can get him there. And if you actually do have the opportunity to kill him, I mean, like, it's entirely too difficult to get to this guy. If it wasn't, you'll see 30-plus sacks, 40-plus sacks. It's entirely too – that's why a 10-sack guy is held in such high esteem, because it's so difficult to get there. So when we do get there and then you take it from us, it's like, come on, man, what do you want us to do?
Do you think it's made the game worse overall?
Yes, I think it has made the game worse. I think guys are still playing hard, but I still think like a lot of the hits and the excitement of certain aspects of the game have been taken away because guys are not. They're kind of pulling up, or like the thing I hate the most is when you see a guy like go to hit a quarterback and immediately turn and look at the ref. Like,
yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just play comfortable. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know.
It does make it very difficult for these guys. You're absolutely right. I think that note about not being able to practice finishing is such a huge one that probably goes overlooked by a lot of people. We talked about your position overall. You mentioned Aaron Donald, who recently hung up the cleats and decided to call that a career, much to the delight of offensive linemen all across the league. Right. He was kind of the consensus answer for best defensive player, I feel like, for such a long time. So now as you look out into the NFL, whether it's best defensive lineman or best defensive player in general, who do you think takes over that title now that Aaron Donald's no longer playing?
Unbiasedly, I have to go with Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
He's just been so consistent since he stepped in the league. Biasedly, I'm going Max Crosby. You know, I think Max is very underrated when the things he does. because what Max does, his level of consistency is unmatched. If you look at what he's done since he's really crossed that threshold of being a guy, he's been the most consistent rusher we've had in this league as far as like pressures, hits, sacks, TFLs, whatever you want to look at when you say like win rate, whatever you want to look at when you talk about a rusher, Max just does it all. And I think that he's only going to go up from here. And I know most people will say, well, what about Michael Parsons? This is no knock on Michael Parsons. I just think that Myles Garrett, for sure, because of what he's done since he stepped in the league and moving forward, I've never seen ever in life a defensive lineman get up and switch sides and 2 tight ends go with him. And then he get up and go to the other side and 2 tight ends go with him. And then he gets up and go to the other side and 2 tight ends go with him. And it forces the offense to call timeout. I've never seen that in life. And I've played in the league with 2 of the greatest to ever do it in J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald. And I've never seen that before. That says a lot. So Myles Garrett is just, I would have to give him the nod for the best in the league. But I'm so excited to see because you got your TJ Watts. With the Steelers fans are going to kill me right now. What about TJ?
Yeah.
I understand TJ, but I feel like Myles, when a person can go to both sides of the ball, when a person is playing basketball on the court and on the field and doing all this, his versatility is incredible. So I'll put Myles at 1, but in no order after that, I got Max, TJ, and Micah. So those are my guys. And Chris Jones. I gotta throw Chris Jones in there because he's a defensive tackle. So I would never not mention a defensive tackle. And Chris Jones, of course. Sorry, Chris. My fault, bro. I got you.
Bumps out an end a couple of times.
Yes.
I'm sure he'll
Shouts out to the brotherhood there.
Appreciate the love there.
Yes.
Max Crosby, I can't wait to see what now he's got a running mate in Christian Wilkins who they picked up. So
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to
Christian
seeing
is one of those too. Christian, when he came out of Clemson, he came down to San Diego to work out with me. So I've been good friends with Christian for a minute, man. He's one of those guys, like, he might not be your typical pass rusher, but as far as the defensive tackle position and how it's played, he plays it the right way in every facet. So I'm excited to see that.
So we're talking about all these great players today, and all of the people who play in the NFL have to start somewhere. You have a camp coming up on Saturday, a youth camp. I mean, these are the next professional athletes. These are the next NFL players down the road. So talk about that and how you help them along that path.
Yeah, well, it's the Gerald McCoy football camp. It's I would call it the second annual for this version of it. I've had them before, but this version of it is different. You know, the NFL has helped me out tremendously. Sat down, had a meeting with them, and they was like, hey, listen, you get grants for camps. I said, you know what? It's time. I have more free time in my city. People don't make it out where I come from. So me, I'm an anomaly. So people see my career and they say, man, Gerald was great. He did this. And you have no idea how difficult it was because the coaches don't come find us. So my entire mission is to give these kids hope and let them know, hey, look at me. You're here. Yes, you're here looking at Gerald. You're looking at all these players that I brought in to help coach. But I just want to be your hope and your dreams in person. Everything you want to do and people tell you can't do, it's right in front of you. You're looking at it. So if I could go back and give back to my city, I'm going to do it as much as I can. This camp is very important to me, and I'm starting a little league in Oklahoma City too because I want to give these kids as many opportunities as I can to show them you can make it out.
Pump for that, awesome. Man. A great message and a great goal and motive behind all of this to try and make the lives of these kids all better between that and Little League. We're fired up. We're fired up for you, man. We're fired up that you get to get through the rest of these meetings and send your daughter off on to college. So congratulations on all that, man. We appreciate it.
Let me see. Look at my shirt. Let me see if you can see it. Let me stand up. Listen, anybody who's ever had a teenage daughter, you feel it. I promise you do. Oh my gosh, boy, they are a different breed.
I wish I had that years ago.
Hey, listen, I've never faced the offensive lineman that is tougher than a teenage girl. I promise you.
You're right about
Christ.
that.
Congratulations, Gerald. We appreciate
Thanks,
the time,
man.
man. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
The long, faraway look in my father's eyes when Gerald revealed that T-shirt.
That last bit of wisdom there probably struck me more than anything else talking about football was a teenage daughter, of which I had one you and Jake were subjected to. And at times, it wasn't pretty.
You know what? It's a different challenge that especially
Love you, Sid. You're great.
For us and men in our background, there's just certain things that you're not as familiar with here until you get to that setting in life.
The great thing about it with Sydney growing up was the fact that you, as the eldest, always tried to keep peace. Always.
Oh, yeah. That's the way my anxiety is structured.
And Jake, as the middle child, always wanted to push the button.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
We all had our job.
Yeah, when Sydney was having a tough time, which was a decent amount of time, Mike would try and calm everybody down, and Claudia would just twist the knife on her to make her even more mad.
Honestly, a lot of that's held into adulthood, too.
Yes, it has. Very true. That's very true.
Yeah, those dynamics usually don't shift too much. It's the same in my household, so I get it.
Claudia, do you have any defense for teenage girls? I feel like they were a bit under attack at the end of this segment here, so I wanted to make sure that we balanced the scales some.
A little bit. I mean, we're the spice of life. Your life would be boring. Boys are too easy, aren't they? It's just you play sports and you do this, and us girls, we play sports and we're girls and do girly things, and we're a lot, and we put pressure on you that you need. We make father's skin thick. That's what we do.
Yes, you do.
We put you through a lot on purpose.
People always say, "Who's easier to?" I said the boys were much easier to raise.
Because we're morons.
We just don't
Boys
care
are
about
stupid.
things. Where women, the drama of everything is it's just unbelievable.
Well, that's because women are actually thinking about the things that happen to them and around them versus guys who are just sort of like burping and drooling through life.
We just don't think. Sydney is upstairs right now with her daughter, Alex, 6 months old, who at times we wished upon Sydney to be a tough baby, that she would get the feel of what we went through, but she's unbelievably a good kid. I get both of my grandkids up there. Jackson running around, doing, living life up there, loving life, 2 thumbs up and everything. And Alex being a good kid, and I need Sydney to feel some of that angst that she gave us.
If you want angst, coming up next, I have maybe the most angst in any setting ever next. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We were talking a little bit about anxiety before, and I can't imagine any greater anxiety than the situation I'm about to lay out for you guys here on Celtics Championship Parade Day in Boston, which is a very exciting day. I know where the DraftKings studio are in Boston, right near downtown, in the center of all the action here. You've got banner number 18 getting hung up here. Big, long championship drought between the early 2000s teams with that big three and now this group here. I'd imagine the streets are absolutely packed with people. We've got a camera out there to show you all the action right now. Take a look.
Crazy.
Okay.
So is that because I can't believe there's apathy because there's too many championships, or maybe there is. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they have so many parades, Claudia, all the time. That now it doesn't start till 11. So that picture we showed is still about an hour and a half away from the start.
I get it, but you figured people would be out in the streets already drinking and carrying on.
I would
You've
agree.
been given an excuse to drink all day in a championship parade, and as the saying goes, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
GoJo, do not be mistaken, okay? McGillicuddy's was probably ripped at like 6 a.m. when I was driving to work. There was McGillicuddy's going down throats of Celtics fans everywhere. Don't worry. That's what they're doing. And then they...
Like, are you going to partake in this, Claudia? When we get done, we're done with the show at 10 o'clock Eastern. Are you going to the championship celebration here? What's the plan?
I thought I might have to work tonight. I don't. So, of course, I have to. And I've actually never... As much as there have been rings and trophies, I've never been to a parade in Boston. So it'll be my first, and I'm very excited.
Wow. Oh, man. All right. We've got first parade action for Claudia.
There you go.
I don't think I've ever, Dad, have you ever been to a championship parade?
I have not been to a championship parade, no. I have not. I would have liked to have been in a championship parade.
Yeah, on the receiving end.
Yeah.
After watching like Chris Long and Bo Allen and guys we've gotten to know through this go through their Eagles championship parade, that one to me really drove home just how much fun it's got to be one of the guys on those buses, or in this case, the duck boats.
Are all the guys back from Miami and partying? Are they back in Boston?
I think so, because Tatum was out handing out shots in the North End. These guys love the North End. Yeah, big Italian guys, apparently. My question is, though, there's always that one video of the player that is just off the chain. He is doing something ridiculous when Tom Brady almost threw it into the ocean on the boats. Like, who's it going to be on this team if you guys had to pick somebody?
Two of the best had to be Brady and then Jason Kelsey in the Mummers outfit. Given that speech. So those are two of the best of guys just hammered at their parade, having a great time.
So I'm very excited to see who Jason Tatum is going to be trying to be at the parade today. So I don't think it's going to be him. Jaylen Brown seems like a more subdued guy here.
Who's the personality?
Drew Holiday's been here before. I have my pick right now, and it's the same guy. Effort and energy on this team. He is, to me, the most emblematic of the city itself. Peyton Pritchard is going to be on one.
Oh, God.
I am fully counting on him to lean all the way in and be basically the mascot for this championship.
I don't think it will be Al Horford, who eschewed the trip to Miami.
Yes, Al
with his teammates to stay home. He said he's only left the house twice. You know why?
Which is the most 38.
He's tired. Okay?
Man.
He was asked to do more because Porzingis was hurt. So the man's tired. So he did not go to Miami to party with the young guys. He stayed home with the family.
He was the absolute I'm getting too old for this meme. Exactly. The minute that Kristaps went down in game 2 or whatever it was in this series. So Peyton Pritchard would be my pick for parade MVP today. Between the outfit, between the rate of consumption, I feel like he's got to have it on lock.
Yeah, I remember who, because not a household name though, just like I forgot his first name, but Madsen from the Lakers. Remember with the horrible dance?
Mark Madsen.
Mark Madsen at the championship years ago when he had the horrible dancing display.
You had him there. People always think of like J.R. Smith shirtless.
Right.
So shirtless during the Cleveland Cavaliers championship parade that they eventually commissioned a shirt of shirtless J.R. Smith so that other people could be shirtless J.R. Smith along the way.
Without having to be actually shirtless.
I think it was Willie Gay at the Chiefs parade this last year that was like laying down on the ground and hanging out in the sun shirtless. So you've got to have a guy that shows up and shows out at the parade because, and and I will always go to this principle. There are some guys here, Drew Holiday, multiple time champion now, had the championship with the Bucks, the Kansas City Chiefs we talked about. There are guys in that team with 3 rings now from this current iteration of the Chiefs dynasty. Some people say act like you've been there before. For the vast majority of these guys, in the wise words of my former teammate and former Notre Dame linebacker, Torian Smith, people will say act like you've been there before. I say act like I'm never going back.
Yep.
And that, to me, is exactly how you've got to approach a championship parade. It's about being prepared for your moment. These guys have been hydrating copious amounts throughout the recent days. Their BAC is probably not dipped below a certain level, probably around 0.1 for hours on it. Everyone needs to be prepared, which is why there is one particular place that is going through a lot of anxiety right now. Because, Dad, Boston does championship parades. As much grief as we want to give them, they're good at this. Remember Cleveland when they went through this with the Cavaliers? They hadn't won in a while.
Right.
And so there was a lot of consternation about the parade route and how their ability to handle it.
This one's easy.
This one should be easy.
Should be.
Well, that's what I thought. And we know America runs on this, but Boston especially runs on Duncan.
Yep.
And so that's why I was appalled, stunned, and terrified when I saw this tweet. Gabrielle Starr, who works over at the Boston Herald covering the Red Sox and was over at an event that the team was putting on for media and for people around there, and tweeted this: "Nothing says parade day in Boston like people going absolutely feral when Dunkin' Donuts runs out of ice for the coffee." And Dad, while I know you're a hot coffee guy, most people, especially Northeasterners, really cut their teeth on the icy stuff. And so the fact that on parade day at 9:30 in the morning in Boston, at any Dunkin' location in that city, we're talking about a lack of ice, that is a failure to prepare. And prior preparation prevents poor performance. And in this case, somebody failed to prepare here.
Wow.
And I cannot imagine the anxiety in that Dunkin'.
You're going to get a lot of hot and testy Boston people, aren't there?
Oh, my God. When
With
you
no
can't
ice?
get cold coffee, it gets hot real quick.
Wow. Are you cold coffee, Claudia? Would this send you?
I can't even imagine. I need ice for everything. But in this scenario is when they're just like, you know what, screw it, we'll go get a 6-pack. They just go to the packy and there's no coffee for the day. That's just what it is. Because they will not drink hot coffee. We drink iced coffee here when it's frigid temperature.
Year round.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You know what, Claudia, I'm glad to have you on the team right now. Shout out to my buddy Shelby at ESPN. Shout out to Randy Scott. Cold coffee, no matter the temperature, it is not a moment. It is a lifestyle.
I say the same with hot coffee. It doesn't matter the temperature.
So it is like 95 degrees and humid right now in South Bend. Would you go outside and drink a hot cup of coffee?
Yes, it is 0 degrees in South Bend when you're here. Would you go outside and drink a cold coffee?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, then why are you chastising me?
I want to see you do it.
For drinking, I
want to go on a walk with you after this, and we're going to bring a hot cup of coffee for you to drink.
What's the difference? Why am I being chastised? Oh my God, you would drink hot coffee in heat when you would drink cold coffee in 0 degrees. It's the same thing.
It is, but I've never seen you do it, and I've seen me drink cold coffee.
Oh my God, I've done it. I've done it more than
I don't believe you've done it. At GoJo Golic on Twitter, do you believe my dad has been outside having hot coffee?
How about, hey, Mom, is Dad drinking hot coffee in the summer?
She can't hear you. You can text her, though.
I just heard yes.
But indoors.
Oh, outside?
I don't know if you've had it outside.
Are you kidding me? I'm 61. You've known me for 34 years.
Yeah.
That's it, okay? A lot of years you haven't, okay?
And I'm saying, you know what? It's a what have you done for me lately game. And I don't know if I've seen you do a lot of hot coffee outdoors lately. Quickly, on the ice front, Claudia, you mentioned this. I think very important. Airplane. They come to, the drink cart comes around to your seat here. I sometimes love a glass of orange juice here. They offer you ice. Do you accept it?
Yes.
My dog.
Of course.
On a plane?
Of course.
Yeah, the ice, orange juice. When they ask you with ice, do you want it with ice or without ice?
I'll drink orange juice with ice.
Oh, love orange juice with ice.
Yep.
That little bit of texture there. That to me is when I know who my people are.
Pulp, no pulp. Orange juice.
I would prefer it without pulp.
Really?
Yeah.
Love the pulp. Yeah.
You like so you actively
chunky.
pursue pulp.
It's chunky.
I know. It's pulpy. I'll put ice in the pulpy orange juice.
Wait, what? Oh, well, that's a lot. So then the pulp's all over the ice then. Yeah. It's like leeches on a log in the lake.
You know what it is? It's good. It's good.
Dear God. Sean McDonough's from Massachusetts, isn't he?
Yes.
Is he from Boston?
Yeah.
You know what? Sean McDonough, kind enough to wake up early with us next, help us get ready for Game 6 of the NHL Stanley Cup Final. I'll be curious, Sean McDonough, iced coffee guy or not?
Boy,
what do you think?
I'm going to say he's on my team of hot coffee. That's where I'm going.
All right, coming up next, in addition to finding out how the hell we got here, from the Edmonton Oilers being down 0-3 to now a series on the line, does Sean McDonough drink hot or cold coffee? Next on GoJo Golic. right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Claudia Bellafato. And we are delighted to be joined now ahead of Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final between Edmonton and the Florida Panthers. ESPN and ABC play-by-play announcer on the call for the Stanley Cup Final, Sean McDonough, with us this morning. Sean, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Very excited. Game 6 tonight. Where else would you rather be than here in beautiful downtown Edmonton?
Well, there you go. And again, with no horse in the race for me, I am so pulling for Edmonton to take this to Game 7, just because there's nothing like a Game 7 in hockey, and then hopefully it goes to overtime. But before we get to that, we just we're talking about the Celtics parade that's going to go on today, and it turns out at this point in Boston, there is an ice shortage at the Dunkin' Donuts, so people are having trouble getting their iced coffee, which leads us first to the question. First to the question, are you a cold coffee guy or a hot coffee guy?
Well, I heard you guys debating this as you went to the break, and I don't want to walk the line right down the middle, but I'm a seasonal coffee person. If it's in the winter and it's cold outside, I have hot coffee. In the summer, I have iced coffee.
You know what, Sean? I shouldn't be surprised, Sean, a man of great taste and someone who doesn't feel the need to live in this black and white coffee world that we're in right now. He can find room for a little bit of nuance in this coffee. So, all right, that's good to know. He's a man of both seasons here. I expected that, Sean.
Dunkin' Donuts, best coffee in the world. As a proud son of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, wearing my Celtics green today, Dunkin' Donuts is the best.
Okay, all right, there we go. So Sean's in the parade. Sean, have you ever gone to one of the championship parades? You mentioned being a son of the Commonwealth, ton of championships for you guys.
We've had like 20 of them. We've had 20 of them, I think, in the last 20 years. And we get almost this, here comes another parade. Actually, I was telling this story to somebody on the charter coming back out here from Florida to Edmonton. We have plenty of time to chat on that trip, you might imagine. And years ago, our mayor was the great legendary Tom Menino, who I think was the longest serving mayor of Boston, more than 20 years. Great guy. He had one of his chiefs of staff, David Passafaro, was a good buddy of mine, who said, the mayor is putting together this advisory council of 15 or 16 people. It's going to be people from finance and healthcare. And he kind of wants you to be the sports and entertainment person. And we're going to meet 3 or 4 times a year at the Parkman House. So it was many years ago when we were in the run where it seemed like all the teams, the Red Sox were winning the World Series and the Celtics had just won the NBA and the Patriots were doing their thing. And so we were talking about the parades. And I said, jokingly, why don't we just leave the barriers up? We're going to have another parade in 10 minutes. And everybody looked at me like, seriously? I was like, no, not seriously. No. But there was a time when it felt like we really just should, because, all the teams were winning pretty regularly.
You know what? He's not wrong. As much as the rest of the world might look at that and throw the side eye, he's not wrong for that long stretch of time. So they're going to get a chance to put those barriers.
It's the greatest sports city in America. We don't have to. I know we're here to talk about the hockey, but it's not even debatable.
Claudia Bellafato, our resident Boston fan here, nodding in agreement. So you've got one ally.
I can see her smiling and nodding, and because clearly she's very intelligent.
Well, Sean, you were also very intelligent. So maybe you can tell us, as you've been on the call through this series, what in your mind was the turning point? Edmonton was down 0-3. It looked like Florida was going to mimic their Boston counterparts in the NBA Finals and make this a really short series. Where was the change, and why has it allowed Edmonton to climb back into the series now?
Yeah, well, obviously you'd point to Game 4 when it was, as you said, 8-1, and it really is almost kind of scary how much it was mimicking the NBA series. Until, obviously the Celtics won it in Game 5 and Florida did not. So, I just think, I think a lot of Game 4 was the Florida guys were clearly off. And I think most of them had never played in a game where they had a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And I think they were out of sorts, off their game. I think when they got back to Florida, most people thought, okay, they'll get back to forecheck, keep Edmonton in their own zone, get back to playing their game. And they did, but they didn't do it until they were behind by 3 goals. It was 4-1 basically when Florida really kind of got back to playing the way they've played all season long and really carried the play for the last half of the game. They just couldn't get the equalizer and lost 4-3. So I think that's what I'll be looking for at the start of the game tonight. Okay, they've had 2 games now where they had a chance to win the Stanley Cup. Maybe they've processed what that's like. The jitters will go away a little bit, and they'll try to pick up where they left off in Game 5.
Yeah, Edmonton's power play starting to go again, even getting that shorthanded goal in the last game, their first goal. And no player would ever admit they're feeling it, but is there, with now this will be the 3rd time that the cup is in the building for the Panthers to try and claim this? Are they feeling the pressure? Can we say that?
Well, it's hard to know, right? You guys know, you both played at a high level. It's hard to know what's in people's heads and hearts and minds, but I think they definitely looked a little off in Game 4. Tonight now, you got all the momentum for Edmonton. This place is always right down the street. This beautiful arena, Rogers Place, is always wild. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like tonight after they thought their team might get swept. And, now here they are for a Game 6. And if they could force it back to a Game 7, it would be amazing. It would be historic, right? We've talked a lot about this is the 29th time that a series started 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final. Only once has the team that was down 3-0 rallied to win the Stanley Cup, and that was in 1942. So if they could win tonight and have a chance to do that on Monday in Florida, it would be amazing. One other thing I think both teams are going to have to contend with tonight is Snoop Dogg had a concert in the arena last night. So I don't know, if it might smell a little different than it typically does, but there could be lingering atmospheric conditions from last night.
Yeah, you wonder if
we sound a little off tonight, or if we leave to go have some munchies in the middle of the game, we could be impacted by it as well.
Someone in the booth bring Sean McDonough snacks in the middle of this, so he doesn't have to leave the call there. We can just hear him chewing in the background of this.
I just want to finish the game. I've been powering through with a lingering upper respiratory infection, but it's that time of the year, right? Everybody's playing hurt, so that includes the broadcasters.
Exactly. Finding a way to power through it here. Sean McDonough, hockey tough, getting ready for the home stretch of this one. Sean, we only got a couple minutes left here, but you mentioned a couple of numbers historically with the series and being down 0-3. There was another number I saw that's interesting at this point. The Conn Smythe's been given out 58 times. 5 of those times it has gone to a player on a team that lost the Stanley Cup final. Are we at a point with Connor McDavid after this recent stretch where he should be the odds-on favorite no matter what the outcome of the series to take home the Conn Smythe based on how he's played?
Yeah, and because the Conn Smythe isn't just the finals, right? It's the entirety of the playoffs, and he's doing things that, when you start saying he's doing things that nobody's ever done, which he's done a few of those things in these playoffs. When he's breaking records that Wayne Gretzky had that people said will never be broken, one of those he's already broken in this series, the assist record for most assists in a playoff. I think if Bobrovsky plays unbelievably well tonight, he shuts them out or gives up 1 goal, and Florida wins the Stanley Cup, then, I think it's kind of a toss-up to me, just because until a couple games ago, he was the clear-cut favorite. And then he got pulled here in Game 4. He wasn't great the other night in Game 5. But I think if he rallies back and has a great night tonight and they win the Cup, then to me it's a toss-up between he and McDavid. But I think if McDavid gets it, even if they lose the series, very few people would argue, given what he's doing.
Yeah, Bobrovsky has been so wildly inconsistent. You just wonder which one you're going to get tonight. Yeah, but we know we're going to get
the other
call.
thing. If you're a Florida fan now, that is cause for concern because throughout these playoffs, they play a style, as you guys know. They forecheck aggressively and their defensemen pinch in. So every now and then, when the other team gets the puck out past you, here comes the 2-on-1 or the 3-on-2 the other way, and your goalie has to make a big stop. And he did that for a lot of the playoffs. He didn't do that here in Game 4. Now, of course, he was under siege. It almost wasn't fair. But I think if he's back to form or shaky tonight is going to be a big part of who wins this game.
Going to go a long way to determine that. We know Sean McDonough is going to be in the booth powering through it
with
tonight,
a bag of
no
chips
matter what.
next to him.
With the bag of chips next to him. Sean, thank you so
and
much for
visiting.
visiting.
Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know. It's a nice day outside here, but these hockey arenas are cold, so I would go with hot coffee during the game.
There it is.
You heard it here first. Hot coffee ahead of Game 6 tonight. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
See you.
right, time to finish off the show the way we always do, with a raucous crowd downtown on Boston in Boston, getting ready for the championship parade here, and with this, that, and the third here on GoJo and Golic. 3 quick stories to send you off into parade day so Claudia Bellafato can go get an iced coffee and get ready to get absolutely tuned up with the rest of this Boston Celtics team that, again, I'm betting on Peyton Pritchard as MVP of the parade. We'll see if it comes to fruition. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. If you miss us there, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio for the best of GoJo and Golic. And if you miss us there, or our great guests, and thank you today, Gerald McCoy, former NFL defensive tackle, stopped by to talk with us. And Sean McDonough, ESPN and ABC play-by-play announcer. Going to hear him on the call for the Stanley Cup Final Game 6, as you have heard for the rest of the series. And as we've established, a man with multiple coffee preferences.
How about that? He went right down the middle on that. When it's cold, he drinks hot. When it's hot, he drinks cold.
Can't put him in a box. You want dynamic? He's a chameleon, and he'll be ready to go in the booth tonight. And so, speaking of being ready to go, let's get ready ourselves, guys, and start it off with this. We've been talking a lot about this Boston Celtics team and the championship parade. About Al Horford, man of the people. We already said he's been back at home. He didn't go with the guys to Miami, didn't do any of that stuff here. He wanted to stay home with his family and be a family man. And instead, he spent time serving people delicious chicken tenders at Raising Cane's, braving the 90-degree heat at 8 o'clock in the morning with Al Horford handing you chicken. Dad, this just further cements the bond between man and city that already seems to be as strong as anything we have.
I mean, we talk about a line for Dunkin' Donuts there. How about the line here for him? The line was incredible, as you mentioned, a hot day. And by the way, Raising Cane's, just a phenomenal.
Could drink cane sauce through a straw.
I mean, absolutely fantastic. Love that place. Good for him. As he said, it was the second time he left the house since winning the championship. Everybody's down partying in Miami. He only left the house twice, and once was to go, serve people some Cane's chicken. And I mean, just so many people showed up there. Very cool. He's such a great story. A guy you tried to run out of the league about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I did. I think I owe Al Horford an apology.
You have been apologizing over the years. I'll give you that.
I definitely apologized. I mean, it's been a wild ride. You start his career in Boston. For so long, he was the Joel Embiid stopper. Yeah. So much so that the 76ers brought him over and said, if you can't beat him, join him. Right. He kind of goes on the round robin in between there with the stop at OKC and winds up back in Boston. And for this guy who seems like an all-time teammate, the Celtics players have waxed poetic about that, but I'm sure others feel the same way. For him to now get over the mountaintop, we were talking about this before. Claudia brought up off air, hey, is this a moment where you think about retiring if you're, Al, you've played 18 years, you finally get this prize in the city that you've loved so much. But I'm sure there's a part of him that's looking at the roster, looking at the Eastern Conference and going, well, why can't we do this again now? Some is great, more is better, and maybe he thinks he's got a chance to add to this hardware.
It's always interesting, and when you see it a decent amount, when you see some of your all-time greats in football start to change teams, right? Yeah. When they're on a different, you're like, man, why don't you just retire? And my thought is, because they still want to play. They still want to put in the work in the offseason because that's what's going to make you retire. You never stop wanting to play the game on game day. It's whenever your offseason starts to when your camp starts, all that work that you have to do, you just don't want to go through it anymore, what you have to go through to get you ready for a season. And if the man still wants to do it, man, go enjoy it. Go do it. As long as you're in it, your family's in it, everybody's in it. Have a ball and do it as long as you can.
I think he would just like Kristaps to stay healthy in the postseason. So he doesn't have to do all that extra work again this time, and he can fade into the role on this team that I think he truly wants at this point in his career. So happy for Al Horford, happy for everyone that got to eat Raising Cane's chicken tendies on a hot day in Boston.
So good.
Claudia, let's get to that. Speaking of another championship celebration, Bryson DeChambeau still on one after the U.S. Open.
Yes, the U.S. Trophy Tour continues. He is in Nashville. There's a video out on Twitter of him on Broadway just carrying it around like it's a purse or something, just holding it with one hand, giving hugs on the other. And I looked up, it looks like he's single, at least he's not married. Easiest chick magnet. Easiest chick magnet. Coolest thing you could do is why. If it's not the Stanley Cup, it's that.
I was just going to ask, like, for the average sports fan seeing that trophy,
do you know what it is?
Do you know what it is? Are you as impressed? Like,
because he's not, he's not one of these athletes you go, oh, there's a football player.
Right.
Oh, there's someone. You may not be sure unless you absolutely recognize who is, and you recognize the trophy. Because so if you're carrying around, it's the most recognizable. Got to be the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup has definitely been out the most because the players get to take it for a day. So I do think it would be the most recognizable.
Trophy's a good sell, but like with golf, the most recognizable thing would be if you wore the Masters green jacket out there. That everyone would recognize. But this is, Claudia, this is the same stretch of road that produced back-to-back 2 of the better NFL schedule release videos for the Tennessee Titans, where nobody out there even knew the NFL logos, the most popular league in North American sports, let alone some golfer with a trophy.
So I actually redact what I said. It is a dude magnet because every guy who does love golf is just, that's what it is. It's a dude magnet.
Guys in golf and praising the great golfers, it's ridiculous with guys doing that. And plus, this is going to get you into any VIP line. You're carrying that trophy. He's actually in Nashville. There's a live event this weekend in Nashville. So we're back to separating the best players in the world of not playing, on the PGA Tour or playing on the Live Tour. So Bryson is back on the Live Tour, which is in Nashville. So that's why he's there, basically getting in every VIP line you can. Still being a man of the people, continuing on from what he did at the Open.
Cutting the line at the club with your trophy man of the people move or not?
Absolutely. You would not expect, if you're the average person, you would expect him to be going.
You're saying you want to see your stars being different.
Yeah, they should be treated differently because you know what? He is different.
Wow.
Yes.
Man, that's awfully elitist of you. I would be standing for a lot of reasons.
Would you go stand in the regular line if you won the U.S. Open and had the trophy in your hand? Would you just go in the regular line?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay. All right.
It's the man of the people thing. You're trying to run with that moniker here.
Plus, why is it? I didn't see the trophy. You can fill it, right? Why isn't that full of drink?
He's not inside yet. He's got to wait until he gets behind the bar there. I don't know if they have open carry law.
Nashville, I think, is if he's on Broadway there. Is that one of them?
I should specify open carry for alcohol. They probably have open carry.
Yeah, I was going to see other things there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Broadway, I don't recall, is it where you can have open carry there?
Not sure.
People do it anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say that, it seems like a play. Since we let our first-class passengers do pretty much whatever they want, he is Bryson DeChambeau.
Name the movie, Claudia. Okay, never mind.
The third. Angel Reese recorded her 7th consecutive double-double to set a WNBA rookie record Thursday as the Sky took down the Wings. Here's what she had to say about the accomplishment.
Man, I'm just happy we finally won. And at home, it's super exciting, obviously, for myself. And I try to give myself some grace and tell myself I'm doing a good job, but I have so much more to grow. And I'm just excited to be in this league and just excited to win some more.
They snapped a 4-game losing streak, so they got the win. She had a cool accomplishment, senior.
So averaging just under 11 rebounds a game. That's second to Asia Wilson, former MVP of the league.
Yeah, who's leading everything right now. Asia Wilson.
2-time MVP of the league. She's unbelievable, but second to her. And this is where you separate, whatever you think of Caitlin and some of the actions on the court or some of the things she said after, people go both ways on their opinion. One thing you have to say is she's playing ball, right? I mean, you can separate those things. You can say how someone is saying, talking, or acting, or what you think you have an opinion, but play speaks for itself.
I was going to say
what's going on.
The ball is the ball.
Absolutely,
and I think the part of her game that should be appreciated by most people, we talk all the time about rebounding as such a largely effort-driven thing.
Right.
And that was something Angel was well known for in college and is immediately brought into a league full of grown women. We talked about the physicality of this league, and she's come in, and anytime you watch this guy play, you see her down there physical, finishing on offense and working on especially the offensive glass.
You always talk about different positions or different things you excel at. You need an edge.
Yeah.
To be that. It's about angles and all that. I get it, but it's an awful lot about want to as well.
Yep.
And just having the tenacity and the physical attributes to get there and get the ball. And she's shown that.
I won't say that dog in her. I'll say that tiger in her just to make sure that the home crowd there feels loved up there. So we know plenty of you got that dog in you out today in that championship. Celebrate responsibly. Take care of Claudia Belfato if you see her out there. Buy her something nice and help celebrate this Celtics championship parade. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.